Good morning, and we're back after a week hiatus and a eventful / uneventful World Series. Stu and I are back here with Ethan Barnzy, and we've come at you live with first-time guest on the show, and along with lots of other information from the World Series, and we'll lead that into Thursday, where we will tell you about some of the balls and the things that we saw from behind the curtain that worked best during that week. So, well, with all that, welcome back to Texas, Stu, and better weather than we left it in.
Yeah, although today's looking a little overcast, but that's definitely a first world issue. Our look on that showcase is going to very much focus on what we didn't use. Not a pretty humbling trip down to Florida, unfortunately. The only highlight for me, and probably for you, well, you did cash in the double, so I guess that was a small highlight, was the tournament that wasn't run by the PBA, by our friend Mr. Robert Eddy down at Fort Myers. So that was kind of a trip saver. I came back to Texas on Thursday, just in time to be able to bowl down in San Antonio this weekend. That went quite well. Had a spare 28 bagger.
Doesn't everybody?
Sorry?
Doesn't everybody have one of those?
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
me.
The problem for me is I have those in every tournament except PBA tournaments, it seems like. Because that's the second time in a month that I've had a 589 and a 590. So here's the man who stole the high game pot off me the first game. He shot 300. Boo. And then Sunday I bowled another William Gannam event. That worked well. He made the lane super, super miserable. 50 over lead. I guess my spare ball worked better than most. I'd had a month of practicing them.
Yeah.
So I came away with a victory there. So if you'd like to see that, it's not pretty, but the final is up on our YouTube channel right now. It's a 15-minute video. At least gives you an idea of what we bowled on. It was 40 feet. It was pretty miserable. Although it felt like a house shot in comparison to bowling on Scorpion and Chameleon. Let's quickly talk PBA Royal Rumble, the Lane Talk competition.
Yeah.
Our friends in Sweden have come up with a virtual tournament that you can bowl. I believe that you bowled it last night, so it can't be that difficult to enter. So do you want to give our friends the cliff notes on what you need to do?
If a 50-year-old can do it, is that what they say?
No, it was just you.
Just me in general. That's nice.
My dad's a lot older than you, and he's better than both of us with technology. So I don't think we could use the age thing.
Yeah, you go on the Lane Talk app. You have to download it and have an account, which I already did. You hit play now, and it will pull up as long as you allow location settings, the center you're in. And at that point,
Boleros. It's got to be an AMF Bolero center.
It does for the Royal Rumble. And then
Yes.
once you did that, then it actually pulled up the ad, basically, clicked on it, and it asked you for which pair. And then the pair pulled, you had 5 names to choose from. And then once you bowled one frame, you could activate your account to count towards that Royal Rumble. And if I bowled 33 leagues per week, I could try all 33 times for 3 weeks. So I didn't. It was the last week for that league I was subbing in, and so I tried once, and I'm safely free of the schedule of the next round. Is what I am.
So the qualifying ends on the 21st. They had a deadline extension. But you don't have to do it in league. You can just go into your Bolero center. You have to bowl 2 games. You get 99 tries, I believe, is the is the limit. And and there's $10,000 for first place. Now it's broken up into, I think, 3 regions in the States, 3 regions abroad. So check it out. Our friends over at Lane Talk. It's a bit of fun and it could be financially beneficial. So if you have an AMF Bolero Center near you, head on in. They should have the details to help you out.
All right. And well, next we'll have a guest and we'll introduce him here in a minute. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Mark Baker here. Are you struggling with your game? Do you need another set of eyes? Is there that one thing in your game you just can't fix? Please let me help you. Go to markbakerbowling.com, click on virtual lessons, and follow the 3 easy steps. Remember, you can live anywhere in the world, and with virtual lessons, I can help you. Look forward to seeing your videos. Thank you.
Thanks again to Mark Baker Bowling. I've used him. I'm about to use him a lot more these last 3 weeks and see if we can get back on track. Been a big help, and been a big help to my son, who's trying to speed up the learning curve in a hurry. But,
Viral bowler.
Viral bowler. He shot his first 300 there a little bit. We put him up on Facebook as just hey, just proud of my kid. And 1.2 million views later, he's been the most popular thing on my Facebook page ever. So,
yeah, I was really disappointed he can't bowl the regional because I was actually gonna print off a photo of him and I was gonna run over to him. Oh my God, you're Ryan Barnes! I saw you on Facebook. Can I have your autograph? Proper do the whole embarrassing fan thing.
That would be awesome. And he is he's humble enough that it would embarrass him to no end to have been made a spectacle of like that. So
yeah, I might have even printed off a few copies for people.
Chuck Ritchie, my new best friend, I will be there and I will have golf clubs. I played it in the 90s with Fred Borden and Bob Goyke, and an amazing place.
Did you play it in the 90s as well?
I actually played in the 80s and a little bit in the 70s on that trip. Ooh. However, it was not Pinehurst number 2. We played that one from the back tees, and that one I did also play in the 90s. That's a different well,
okay.
Speaking of someone who has fans from everywhere around the world, 29 years old. He's been on tour for 5 years, and he had the moment we all dream of as we're growing up. Not only now is he a Titleist on the PBA Tour, but he is probably the most popular bowler from Australia on the PBA Tour, Sam Cooley. How are you?
Hi, mate.
Can you?
I don't know about most popular, but sure, we'll go with it. I can, yeah.
Okay, should we go with Australian bowler most likely to win the Nagy? That might be the option.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, mate. It was awesome. We were
really
we were watching here.
Yeah.
We were cheering you on. Yeah. Talk us through it.
If you want, turn your phone sideways, and then we'll all be on the same. You seem to be on a delay. There you go.
Okay, that's a little bit.
All right.
All right, mate. So talk us through your day. I tuned in to watch you against Brad Miller. I have to be honest, that was like watching paint dry early. You guys weren't in a rush.
No, we did get told off by John for that. I told him specifically that we were both struggling. We had maybe 3 strikes between us for a game, whereas everyone else was striking at will, it seemed. I also had an issue with one of my fingers. I had a nail split, so I had to deal with that. We had lane breakdowns. We had it didn't feel like the bowling on cheat. It felt like US Open scoring pace compared to what everyone else was doing. hence the delay. So I explained it to John. He put us on the clock. It really didn't seem like any difference what I said. He's like, yeah, you're on the clock, just bolt quicker. In the end, our match ended up finishing before one of the matches that went to 5, so I don't see what the issue was, but it worked out in the end.
Well, had you guys gone to 5, you would have not given them enough time to run the lanes at the pace you were bowling game 1.
I would have probably taken a rerun, considering.
I clicked over. Stu and I were watching both and flipping back and forth between matches, and we're like, Simo's almost done with game 2, and they're in the 9th frame of game 1. And about that time, we clicked over, and you either lost a thumb or something happened, and it was another minute and a half before, the issue got settled, and I'm like, oh my God, they're never going to finish. And then Brad started running, and it looked like you were going to get steamrolled. And
yeah, I did. I think it's all on a delay. I did have a thumb snap down the back after shooting a spare, which took one of my pitch bikes out of play, which I never really planned on using after game 2 anyway. So it wasn't much of an issue, but I did have to go to a thumb that didn't exactly feel the best. And that was the thumb I used for the rest of the day, getting to the show and eventually winning. So I guess you could say using a thumb that wasn't 100% the best feel still worked out okay.
Maybe you need to readjust what feels good.
Possibly, yeah.
Because it sure looked good on the show. I'll be honest with you. I feel like we need to talk a little bit about your match with Chris Vi. I don't know that I've ever seen a finish quite like it. We're gonna brush over the fact you shot 300. Yeah, it was cool. But anyway, you went into the 10th frame against a 2-hander, basically up 1 pin, and talk me through what happened after that.
I didn't catch what you said. I think.
I was talking about Chris Vi's 10th frame. You were bowling against a 2-hander who left the 5 pin, and then he missed it for you. I bet that was a strange thing mentally, thinking that you were going to need 3 in the 10th, and then the next thing you're like, oh shit, I just need a spare now.
Yeah, that definitely took a lot of the wind out of my sails, so to speak. You don't ever expect to see any kind of fish like that in your life. And I actually had a discussion with Chris when the match was done, and he explained that specifically this building, he did have issues with balls slipping off his hand for spares and strike shots going from urethane to reactive or plastic to urethane and so forth. So it made a little more sense because I asked him, like, did you stick the line? Because he stood up after releasing the ball, and then he explained the whole scenario. And at the time, I thought, well, I don't know what just happened, but I now don't need to double. I just have to stay clean. And I threw probably one of the best shots in my life to move on there. Having said that, if he carries the 5 pin and it goes to needing a double, I don't know if I'm still sitting here talking about it, but it was definitely surreal with how that match ended, considering that after game 2, it felt like I gave him a chance in the 10th frame of game 2 when I had what seemed like the better ball reaction at the time. I could have easily been 3-0, but that happens in match play.
Yeah, I think you're selling yourself a little short there. You bowled a great game. I almost feel like him doing that in the 10th frame almost made it a little more tricky for you because it's just such a like, oh my God. and then having to reset is just that's actually harder sometimes.
Yeah, the thought process was definitely a lot different after that happened. I was fully prepared to get up knowing that I needed to double the win. And it's like you said, my thought process completely switched to where I had to kind of just sit back and regain myself and think, okay, well, I don't know what just happened, but it's irrelevant. We're still going to get up and do what we're supposed to do regardless. And I pulled it off, which was all I could ask for.
Yeah. So fast forwarding onto the show, it brought back memories for me watching the show because they went to the format that I won my first title in. I really feel like that format doesn't favor, but it gives you a little more breathing room as a guy who's not on TV as much, because you only have to beat one guy and it's not the guy that first game. Now, you did have a bit of a murderer's row on there with you, but at the same time, I just feel like it gives you a little more breathing room. It's not like on top of you. And also the fact that 4 guys are bowling, it's a little slower. So it's like you don't have to focus on slowing yourself down. Did you, having bowled on TV a few times before, did you feel like that was a little more of a comfortable process for the first game?
Yes and no. When I first looked at the format, it only stated that it was eliminator round. So I had to clarify exactly how that was going to work. In my head, I thought it was like it used to be 10 years ago when the World Series was in its early years. And having the only need to be third place essentially after game 1 did take off a lot of pressure. At the same time, looking back at that game now and feeling what I did at the time, knowing that I needed help from Simo, I wouldn't say I was overly confident that I was going to get a chance, but I knew that if I ever did, then I have to take it for all it's worth, because I knew with the amount of urethane and plastic going down the lane from when Marshall threw warm-up shots, my reaction was only going to get better because of the amount of urethane carried down and plastic. And the ball rep said the same thing. Like, your reaction is eventually going to get better. You just have to get past match 1. And the next 2 games, I think I shot a combined like 505 to win.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't wrong. it definitely did get better. There was quite a few shots where I missed it in by a good margin, and I just hit that little wiggle spot and did the right thing.
Talk us through the 2 balls you used, or was it 2, or do you use more than that?
I started off with the aspect I used against Vi, and both shots wiggled. So I knew then and there, this is not going to work. I need to go to something that's stronger in the mid lane, but still has enough shine on it to get down the lane, because we were bowling a lower volume cheater in a place that hooks a ton. So I went to my shiny axiom, knowing that that was the ball to go with. There was a couple of execution errors early on in that first match. There was a good shot that I threw where I got tapped on 7-pin. I just knew that I had to make sure I got it to the right, but the ball speed needed to be a little bit softer, because it was going to shoot straight through it or go in the channel if I tried throwing it any harder than I did. And that was the main ball I used going forward after frame 2 of game 1. I didn't switch on that. I didn't even look for other options. I suggested looking at a similarly drilled Zen to Matt, and he just shook his head, just stick with what you got, and that's what I did. And now that I look at it, if I did try Zen, I probably would have thought like this was the ball to use.
Yeah. Sometimes the ball reps are there to save you from yourselves, not necessarily come up with the right answers.
That's true. Yeah, I think he just wanted me to keep everything as simple as possible, which was another thing I was telling myself mid-match. Just do what I'm supposed to do. Go through the same process that got me to this point, and just keep everything as basic and simple as I can.
I almost feel like Marshall Kent struggling the second game actually ended up helping you in the final, because I think that seeing his reaction was what told Prather to stay to the right. And I think that staying to the right obviously proved not to be the right thing for Prather.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I knew with all of the USA shots he was going to throw, eventually it would give me more mistake room down lane. Marshall being left of everybody to start looked okay game one, but it seemed that if he tried to move off that, and we all saw what happened when he was still left, he was lucky to hit the 10 pin, the head pin on the left side.
Yeah.
So I'm a little surprised he didn't try and play further right to where I was. I don't know if he handcuffed himself with the strategy that got him there. That could have been the case. I don't know. But him struggling that match put my mind at ease going forward, knowing that I only have to make sure I'm ahead of him, because me and Prather were both stringing to start with, and it was just going through the same motions that I had been for the first half of the game, knowing that the pressure is slowly easing off, and I just have to stay clean.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, for sure. So now you've been, like Stu had mentioned, you've been on several shows. How different was it for you with no crowd there, and did that affect you from a intensity or nerves, or how did the atmosphere change for you on this show versus the other ones you've been on?
I think this show not having any spectators was a benefit. I normally try and shut out my surroundings when I bowl normally anyway. So this definitely did help. Obviously, when you have a bunch of spectators, there's going to be noise, there's going to be movement. So having that eliminated for us because of the current world we live in was, I think, more beneficial to me than what it might have been for others.
Now, there's a lot of emotion after the match, and having known you for a while, there's been a lot of things going on for a while. Can you lead up to the circumstances and kind of the things that have been going on here in the last year, and then your focus on the show, and then after the show?
So, getting to the reason why I was so emotional was in January of last year, I got a phone call in Oklahoma saying that my mum was diagnosed with terminal neuroendocrine cancer, where basically all of her organs were beginning to shut down because of it. So she was unable to eat, she was unable to drink, she couldn't even go to the restroom. She was essentially screwed. She said that the doctors gave her 6 weeks, and that it wasn't going to matter when they did the surgery if they did, because she was going to die on the table. 2 years ago, 1 year ago, it didn't matter. So they transferred her to hospice, which back then we call palliative care. So I went home basically straight away as soon as I quit after Jonesboro, despite me trying to get her sooner. She told me, "You're there for a reason, like, just stick around and do what you can, and then come home when you can." But I could never live with myself knowing that if I stick around, she could very easily pass away tomorrow. So despite doing decently in qualifying for Jonesboro, there was a couple of games at the end where I started to think, like, I couldn't believe that she was so content and calm about the diagnosis she received, because I knew if it was me, it would be like panic mode. But she was always very blunt. she called. She basically called it as she saw it. So she was very content. She did say to the doctors, "Well, if you've got the needle in your back pocket, I'd like to go now." So it was definitely very emotional those last couple of fights against Chris. So I knew coming into this tournament on the TV show, I wanted to do it for her, and I was able to pull it off. So being able to dedicate that for her was by far the best thing I could have done. I really wish that she was around to see it, but I convinced my dad begrudgingly to go to a friend's place and watch it on the TV back home. So at least he was able to see it, and he saw how much it meant to me, and I got a phone call from him shortly afterwards, and it was tearful.
That's awesome.
So
mate.
this definitely means a lot for me in my career, especially going forward now. It feels like hopefully things start to snowball, as a lot of people say, like once you get that first one, it all kind of goes from there. So we'll see how everything goes in the future.
It can, or you can wait another 9 years to win another one. It can go either way. Trust me.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, we can't all be Chris Barnes. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I was pretty fortunate with mine. I got one, and about 6 weeks later, I got the second one. So it worked out okay. It took a minute for the third one.
You also had a 30-week season.
Yeah.
Yeah, waiting 3 weeks this year would be an entire year.
Yeah, like it's been forever since I bowled well. That was 6 tournaments ago.
Yeah.
So
all right, Sam. Well, your connection's been a bit in and out. We've really appreciated you joining us. Congrats again. We will see you in Reno, and we will toast your success.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
You're welcome, mate.
you got any more finals left? Or are you heading back home?
No, I started everything else. Cheetah was the only thing that I had a chance on.
Mate,
No,
doesn't matter.
I'm not heading home until possibly after. I'm not going to head home until after the events in Reno, and that's if the current rules and regulations allow me to skip hotel quarantine, which I don't believe they will. If there's a way for me to get the vaccine while I'm in the US, I'd much rather pay whatever fees are involved there than have to pay a hotel chain back home $3,000 to sit on my ass for 2 weeks.
My wife says Stu was really cheering you on last night. You can only imagine he's not that hopeful for everyone. Yeah. So
it must be a foreigner thing.
No, I really empathize with the fight that you'd been through, and like I say, Prather gets every break under the sun. It was nice to see somebody else some of it go the other way. I knew you were fine the second he 4-pinned, and a pin didn't just randomly just brush it and it fall over. I was like, Sam's good now.
Well, it almost did the second time we 4-pinned on the left lane.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As soon as that one stood up, I was like, it doesn't matter. Sam could throw it in the gutter and it's still going to be fine because Prather always gets that hit. So, man, if you'd have been a bit closer with Prather, you could have given him the times are changing, boy.
I'm not quite to that point where I'm not at that point yet where I can start.
Oh no! Don't get me wrong. I understand. If you were Mika, you'd have gone up, tripped the pin, and then you'd have been like this, checking the name shirt as if he's the person who's never got a break in his life.
Oh yeah, that's the old Ryan Schaefer move, though. He's the originator of that one. So
yeah. All right, Sam. Take care. We'll see you in Reno.
One day I'll get to that point.
All right.
All right. See you guys there.
All right. Be good. Congratulations.
Right.
Awesome.
So, Sam Cooley. We had a little bit of a challenge there with his phone connection, but overall, it was a nice story, a feel good event, I guess you would call it. Yeah, it was definitely a interesting scenario with the way the lanes broke down. Cheetah really sets up well for that that particular format, I think, because I feel like they're kind of easy for the guys with urethane early on.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like I say, Prather kind of got a little trapped. You would never in a million years have expected to see Prather on a show being 15 right of the guy he's playing. But with no practice and with his luck and everything else, it just kind of got to that situation.
Yeah, he actually had an opportunity there because Marshall was so far behind that he could get a look in that second game. And I don't know they did a, I mean, for a guy who's had a really good run on TV, maybe a little bit, it's always easy to 2020, I mean, hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked back on a lot of shows and went, wow, that was dumb. I should have done this.
Yeah. And I would completely stick up for Prather if it wasn't the fact that he was actually doing something he didn't do most of the time on Cheetah when I was watching him in his matches.
Right.
So it wasn't like he didn't have, like, in his mind, which balls would probably look okay. Like, because it's really difficult if you're really committed to playing the urethane deal, not knowing which ball to change to is like a big deal because it could be 6 right or left. But yeah, that was one thing that did kind of surprise me a little bit. But like I say, he did bowl 250 that game, and I guess he felt like he had enough room to move right and just amp up the speed a little bit. But urethane gets a little tricky when you're throwing it 21 miles an hour.
And that is the trick with urethane. It looks great until it doesn't.
Yeah. And then, of course, he had the foul situation, which got a bunch of guys like, well, he didn't stand on the lane, as if the foul line isn't part of the lane. Like, it's like a touchdown, guys.
Yeah, anywhere across the plane.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be wide. If you stand on the gutter cap, once you stand on top of it, it's foul.
Yeah, because, well, what people were saying was, he didn't encroach on the lane. He only touched the foul line, and, well, that's a foul.
Yeah.
So there was great debate on Facebook about it, like there is every time. Bill O'Neill needs to be shot because he brought in, I think the fouls are the most ridiculous thing in bowling. As if bowling's not easy enough, you're going to take away the foul line as well.
Yeah.
Like,
how far is too far?
Yeah, exactly. So I get it.
The problem is we live in a world where if you give them an inch, then it becomes a foot, and then it becomes the dots and the arrows, and And
I get it. We could say that the dots were the foul line because realistically nobody's going to go there. But say somebody does, and then there's oil all over the lane all the time, all over the approaches all the time. It's just it's fine how it is. Just stay behind the line.
I found it interesting, and it's one of those things that it's kind of like the grip thing. When nobody had extreme pitches and you didn't get the grips all the way down, it wasn't a big deal. Well, now you got guys that pitch their fingers away an inch. The grips are literally sticking up more than a half inch around. And they did a slow motion on somebody, not last night, but the day before. As the ball is going down there, you can see them sticking out like the thumb slug came out. And then it took the second time, I went, those are the grips. And now if the circumference of the ball is bigger, is that not an advantage? At what point is it okay?
Oh God, we've got him on his soapbox here, guys.
I know, and it's a little bit of a get off my lawn. But there are rules, and there's a reason. How much is too much? Well, a little is okay. Well, a half, 3/4 of an inch isn't. So
yeah, I mean, I like the grips one is whatever it is. I mean, I don't understand why people do it. But whatever. I mean, we don't really need to name anybody. There's half the field who's like that. So.
Oh no. I mean, I was with Sanders and he called me Walter for it. Well, just because you don't want to follow the rules doesn't mean it's not one.
Hello, Walter is getting a little grouchy.
Well, and speaking of, he basically, I think he followed through. he's been talking about maybe I should not bowl anymore, and then there was the talk at the beginning of the week of, well, if I don't make any cuts this week, I'm not going to bowl the Masters U.S. Open. So, of course, in true Walter fashion, when anyone writes Walter off, including himself, then, of course, he bowls the best he's bowled in some time. He got wrote off 3 times since I came on tour. He won 3 Player of the Years after each time. He won 1 each time. So this time he made 3 cuts, I believe it was. Bowled fantastic. And he was saying kind of congratulations to guys. And I thought it was a little bit funny kind of how he was seeking people out. And then he said, well, I'm not going to bowl the Masters in the U.S. Open. And he was basically saying his goodbyes. And man, I mean, 35 years, it's a hell of a run that he's put on him. And I know a lot of the guys under 30 didn't see him when he dominated week in, week out, but he put it on him and didn't do it with the most power, didn't do it with a lot of other advantages other than he just outcompeted a lot of people.
Yeah. We're I don't really know what to say about Walter, because this week, I mean, he suddenly just decided they're hard enough. I'm going to be the man, and he bowled great. I mean, he bowled fantastic.
It was the hardest I've seen him throw it in 6 years, maybe 7 years. Like, Walter Ray, and that's an issue when you throw it, relatively straight. One of the things he could do is he could make it stay on a line that you couldn't make it stay on, and then outstrike you doing it. And when you throw it softer, then that goes away. And they were hard. You couldn't just throw it to the right and get it off 7-8 every time. And he basically just kind of picked a spot and put it on him for a little while, and had a lot of young guys going, oh my God, can he win this thing? That hadn't really seen him play at that level. So, yeah, Chuck Ritchie said then he went up to the PBA 50 regional and ran it over. No days off for Walter. No tournaments off. He might not practice that much, but he is not taking any turn. He drove 8.5 hours and bowled a regional after bowling 100 games in a week. So,
yeah, he's the man.
So he really retired just from the regular tour, and he might still bowl. Who knows? But yeah, not from the PBA 50. He will, I'm sure, still beat my brains in out there too. So,
okay, let's go. Let's quickly spin it back. World Championships. That was a that was a interesting finish.
Yeah, my guy, my splitter, fellow Adam splitter, Tom Doherty, been on the
2-8.
He split the 2-8. For a guy who I would say he built up a fair amount of collateral during that 100 game. And so I've always kind of felt like you're going to have one of those games, have it all together. And that's all anybody's going to talk about, but they're going to forget about the part that basically in frames 4, he struck in frames 3 and 4, and basically frames 5 through the first one of the 10th were about as good as you'd ever want to throw shots. He made them look like they weren't very hard, and he was the only one that made them look like that. It was a top-notch run where he was chasing Jacob the whole time until the 9th and 10th, and had a chance to shut him out. We had some demons coming into that frame, and from previous shows, and to come through in those moments, there's a lot of baggage there. And while it's self-inflicted, I personally found it pretty cool to watch him come through in that moment and then catch a really good break. Now, if he didn't catch it, didn't mean Jacob was going to double.
No. And I didn't really think it was that. But looking back on this is where the whole Specto thing becomes kind of entertaining, because it didn't feel like it was that bad of a shot looking at the Specto. But he probably just missed it a little bit off his hand, or he just shoved it a little bit through the front. And it because Specto is very much 2D, it's very difficult to
Yes.
capture all of it. But like I said to a few people in the bowling center, I said, look, he led, so he was due a break, and he was playing a lefty. So in my mind, he was due another break.
Don't wait to argue with you.
Now, in defense of Jacob at that point, I guess Jacob's argument would be, I was the only lefty who made it, so maybe I was the one who deserved the break. This isn't really his show, so no, you didn't. And that wasn't even what Jacob said, because Jacob's the nicest person on earth. So Jacob probably isn't even upset that the guy did it.
No, he was probably one of the happiest guys for him. I mean, he took his picture, made Tom come over and give his loser's picture. I mean, who does that?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, without wanting to punch the guy in the face because he just rolled 2 to beat you.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm saying roll 2, Big Mike, not trip 2-8, because I just don't care either way. Like I say, it did almost look like the air gun was in the back. Because it felt like nothing was anywhere near that 8 pin, and then suddenly it fell dead forward when he needed it to fall dead forward. So, like I say, a hometown break, shall we say?
Yeah, I think Tom's really good at throwing it hard and tumbling it, and he had to throw it a little softer and touch it a little bit more. And with all the adrenaline and things going on, I mean, that was a great run of shots he put on him. And when I saw the final one out, the first thing I said is, "Ooh, that's firm." And you're hoping that he just caught it more to go along with it, but obviously he catches it pretty much all the time.
So you spoke about this. I didn't hear this, but he mentioned that he grabbed the wrong ball frame too.
Yeah, that's what I heard after fact. He had a couple balls up there. He grabbed the wrong one and it way overhooked. And I mean, he didn't freak out about it, which is.
It was the Bruce. It was the second ball of the. It was the second frame, the one where he went.
Second and the 10th. It was the second frame where he split.
Yeah.
So when I first heard it, I thought the same thing. They said, "Well, he grabbed the wrong ball in the second, and I had the second one in the 10th." Man, I've had some crazy things happen on TV, and
it's way easier to do it the second frame than the second and the 10th. And the other thing is like, if I'd have been in that position and I'd done it once, as soon as I bowled the 9th frame, I might have taken the ball off the rack.
I've done it before. Taking a thumb out of it, whatever. Just make sure I can't do it, because I've done it in qualifying before. I've never done it on TV, I don't think, but I've come close, and that's exactly what happens. Is that ball leaves the premises. So it's hard to explain how fast your head can spin, especially in the early shows. Things happen that you just can't believe what happened.
So Jonathan writes this, and this isn't to get at you at all, Jonathan. It's just a term that I detest. He said, Tom looked great all week. He matched up really well. Well, the way people use that phrase, and I'm not saying you're doing that here, is that it was just like, oh, Tom Doherty, you're going to match up well. Chris Barnes, you're not. That's not the case at all. Yeah. Like, matching up is that you make changes to match up. Like, Doherty used balls this week. He used an Intel Pearl. He never uses that ball. He didn't even have any on the truck. Like, and the guys, like Doherty was running it over in the World Championship round robin. There wasn't one guy on their staff who said, hey, any chance I can get hold of one of those?
Yeah, he was throwing a ball that nobody on the staff liked.
Yeah, nobody wanted to even, like, they weren't even thinking, like, every single one of them were like, oh, yeah, but Doherty always uses weirder balls than everybody else. So he just bowled fantastic. Like, he had experience of bowling that center. Like, I feel like that was bowling the players there. I mean, in the end, it didn't factor in as much as I thought it might. But I do think that Tom knew what he was getting before the players. He made the show at the players. Like, he was the only one who had any experience of that center, and he told us, like he said, he felt really comfortable that they were bowling there. Like,
he felt good about it. He felt like the left was not super easy there.
Yeah.
And so
and he bowled there plenty, and the center was really challenging across the building, and he had a really good plan. And I think that when Tom focuses in on, he's very committed to what he believes. So when he has enough data, it always goes well because he's a great bowler and he gets his mind set and he doesn't waver from it. He's very committed to it. Like, as soon as he sees a ball do something he doesn't like, it's gone. Like, he's not going to like try and manipulate it and keep it in play for a while. And I think he used that understanding of the center really well. And he just bowled great. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how he does, in the next couple, because I think he made both the next two. I think he was second and first.
He bowls today. Yeah, he crushed the next two.
Yeah.
Interesting question, Tim. One of the TV Arsenal rules at time will have to get the grenade retested or approved because of age. No, once they're USBC / that one was ABC approved, it's approved. And at the moment, our PBA rules for balls are USBC rules. So there is no hardness or anything else testing. That ball would be way harder than any of the current urethane balls. And and once again, it seems like Simo was his own worst enemy looking for a trick, and he just doesn't need them. I'm not sure why he's doing it, other than he's 23 years old and things just work when he does them.
To be fair, he did use that ball the whole time in qualifying, like on the fresh.
Yeah.
And in all of his matches. So
see his first game in the matches. I saw later games and he was throwing reactive most of the time.
Yeah. Like, I bowled next to him in qualifying. He used that ball in qualifying on the fresh. So, I mean, like I said, I didn't think his reaction was particularly terrible. He just didn't really like the right lane. The right lane just forced him a little bit too far left. But I'm pretty sure he would have been out of it for the next match immediately. Looking on the matches that he'd bowled previously and kind of what he wanted. I just feel like on TV, people they kind of like the urethane deal early on because you don't have to put as much touch on it. Like Marshall probably had the best path to throw a strike. Like, if he threw a good shot, it was almost guaranteed to be a strike.
Yeah.
But, I mean, man, that looked like that was a challenging way to get to the pocket. I mean, he had some shots. He was like 21 at the arrows, like 18, 19 at the arrows to like 0.2.
Yeah, that's a really, I think it's a great point because it's a balance you play all the time. And you and I played it during the week a lot. There's a path that goes through the pins the best, and then there's a path that hits the pocket the best. And the guy that marries the two, I mean, when you have the easiest path and you can strike, that's when you get the monster numbers. That center is almost never that. It's actually a pretty tricky center to carry in. So you do have to more things come into play. And you and I spent way more time trying to get the ball to go through the pins versus just taking our lumps with carry and just controlling the pocket over and over and over, which a lot of the guys at the top did. And obviously more speed and reps. Speed was a big factor in knocking them over. But I didn't like his plan on the fresh. I think maybe had he got further, it would be better. But really, when it got further and more carry down happened, the worse it got for him, it seemed. So, again, easy to look back and go, "Oh, wow, that was dumb." But he also got there doing a lot of the same thing.
Says good ball and Sam question. You were throwing a stone ball, not global. Yeah, we're all one family together now. If you tune in on Thursday, we'll go through a little bit of what we saw as the most popular options. Spoiler alert: there's going to be a lot of global love. When you have a good game plan and lanes, most players can shoot well. I'm not sure that's true, but yeah, it's definitely
It's helpful.
it's not necessarily so much the game plan, it's the commitment to it that's the key, because it's everybody has a plan. Like, we're professional bowlers, everybody has a plan. Like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more true than bowling on the PBA tour. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. Okay, cool. Wow, this is really working. Man, I've come up with a great plan today. Oh, shit, those guys, those mean guys I'm following didn't do what they were supposed to do. Now this lane sucks. What do I do?
Yeah.
That happened to me a lot.
Yeah, I was in the groupings of the Purple Hammer group. So we had the pairs I was chasing had tons of early friction, and a lot of it was further left than you would anticipate the urethane being with carry down. And so, I had a plan, and then 8 frames later, we basically had to throw all of it out and start over. And that happened multiple blocks where what I thought would happen. And in the finals with the best guys, they're the top 16 even. I mean, one block, they look like there's a little strip up 11, 12. Everybody plays fifth arrow. The next block, Walter starts out with 5, 10 for 2. And the whole field plays between 8 and 12. And then the next round, they all play 20. And everybody had a plan. They're like, oh, well, we bowled a lot better the second block. We'll all play there. And by the end of game 1, 2/3 of the field was 2 arrows left of that. So obviously it wasn't there.
So somebody asks, do you think Marshall's contract with Big Bowling hurt his chances? I to be honest, I have no idea. I think that it gave him less options, but obviously the options worked out pretty well for him to make the show. And from what I saw, I only saw him use that ball during the matches. So maybe he would have done something different, but maybe if he'd have had more choices, he just wouldn't have made it. So there's,
there was something there
two sides to every coin.
Yeah, Prather saw something that made him think urethane was the better play. The one thing they don't have is I don't think they have a urethane ball available to them. And so, with that, he had to make some choices and do some things that he wouldn't, he didn't have the, sometimes on TV, that's the best option is to not have too many. And his strengths are being really aggressive, knocking the holes out of it and throwing it left to right. And that's what he's best at. And so I think he just played right into his strengths. The ball saw the carry down a little bit. It made his, they were a little too responsive to the wrong things on that particular show. The blue oil, the lights, the things, they're always a little different. And when the patterns are somewhat flat, a little different ends up being a lot different. So, yeah, having a few more options might have helped him, but it might not have changed anything. It's not like the other two guys bowled bad. They both shot 250 that game. He could have bowled fantastically and still had the same result.
What do you think about Marshall's new bowling balls? I'll take this one. I think they look like a lot of new companies that come out on tour. I think that they're in a process of learning and trying to get it. I mean, there's a reason why the bowling balls pretty much only get made in the States. It's not a very easy process to copy. No. So when Motive came out, they had teething issues too. They've kind of got past that. They understand what they can't do, what they can do. And the other point is depending on which process you have, and I'm no expert on this. I'm just giving you some of the things that I've heard and understood. Like when you have different processes, it doesn't matter. Like if you have the guy who did it over here and he goes over there, the process at Storm is a bit different from the process at Brunswick, which is a bit different from the process at Motive. So it might be that, like, if Motive make balls, I don't know, that are blue, just to pick a color, that they don't hook very much. But if Storm make a blue ball, maybe that hooks way more. So it's a lot of trial and error. And, what one piece of knowledge tells you isn't necessarily helpful to the next plant. So I think that they've got a long road, and I feel like, you know, Marshall wanted to get in on the ground floor, and it's probably going to be a little bit of a challenge for him for a little while, but I'm sure that he understood that going in, and maybe he feels more relaxed doing it that way. I mean, Marshall's a pretty versatile guy, and, you know, all power to him. Good luck to him. I mean, from my point of view, having as many options for bowlers is great. The more companies we can get back into the industry, the better. I mean, the fact that we were down to 3 ball manufacturers, I personally was a little bummed about. So the fact, if big can go big, I think that would be good. So we'll see. Thanks, Basil. It wasn't the last few weeks. It was the last few days. But I appreciate the stars.
Yeah, well, you know, we're about an hour here, and so
one question to finish. There you go. We'll send that one over to the king.
Any advice for someone bowling the Masters for their first time? Yeah, get a COVID test. Funny guy. Generally speaking, they've done the same thing for a lot of years. So, of course, I will go with assumptions that will be 100% wrong. But generally speaking, 39 to 40 feet, not a ton of volume. Although in recent years, it's been a little slicker. They've upped that volume. Yeah. You know, the angles, the place tends to break down a little bit where it's not a big, you don't use tons of angle necessarily in qualifying, being able to keep the ball in play and hit the pocket. When you're trying to make top 64, you don't have to have monster games necessarily. It's really about, like I say, if you have a good game plan and you can control the pocket, you can take some lumps there and be okay. Reno is interesting. So when you go up on the high end, there's going to be some very interesting pairs that you'll have to survive. And so that's where part of that strategy comes in about trying to control the pocket, because scoring 10 or 20 pins less on some of the good pairs is very minor compared to being in lane 71 and shooting 140 or 50. That's a tough thing to come back from.
Yeah, my view on the Masters is pick an arrow. It almost doesn't matter which one it is, but just pick one of the first 3 arrows to try and bowl on, because the lanes are usually pretty difficult and there usually isn't a right answer. There's just what's right for you. So, you know, I've qualified some years where I've played really straight, you know, around 8. And then other years, like the year I led in Syracuse, they were impossible. And I played 15 or 20 and I had the best reaction in the building on the fresh. So it's more about just committing to something and trying to build your arsenal off that.
Yeah,
rather than
it's way more about making good shots there than it is about looking for magic ball reaction. Yeah. The path is set up well to basically maximizing and getting monster scores. It's a whatever the overused term, shot maker's pattern, but it's you know, it really is about picking a spot. Like you said, you can play anywhere from the gutter. Tougher in Reno going across pairs, but so anywhere between probably 7. You can pick 12, you can pick 17, and then on B squad you could pick, you know, for the left. And
slow speed usually looks all right in Reno from my experience. I feel like I've been able to slow hook it a little bit.
Pretty good point here. Laying out is important in Reno. Yeah, it's a little bit downhill. The ball doesn't like to slow down, so being consistent with that it's a big deal. Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
I'm sure our man Chris Prather won't be upset.
No. Yeah, and so with that, good luck in Odessa. I never had any issues in Odessa.
Your main issue is Anthony Lavery, and you've got rid of that issue.
I got rid of that issue. I'm not letting pride F with me. I'm just use that in.
You just don't know what you're signing up for. Now you've got Keith Lesko's your issue.
All right, yeah. Well, Rick Bernard was on my pair last night for league. He beat me by about 100. So I've just traded one problem for another.
Okay, we will see you guys on Thursday. Thanks for tuning in.
And we will be back, like we said, with kind of a breakdown of the World Series and some of the Tournament of Champions as well. But most of the World Series, what balls worked, what a little bit of what didn't. But we'll be focusing on the things we saw most, the balls that surprised us, and the ones that we were surprised we didn't get to use more. So with that, we will see you on Thursday. And until next time, support small bowling centers and small businesses. Help them get through this time. And when you get a choice, please support the sponsors that support us: Storm, Rotogrip, Iron Global, Vice, Turbo, Cool Whip, 3G Shoes, Master, Bowlers Mart, and Mark Baker Bowling. Until Thursday, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.